Today we're going to have a look at creating a collagraph print. So a collagraph is using textured materials, so things such as tissue or silver foil. This bit's a bit crumpled up. Silver foil, netting, or perhaps some string or some scrim, whatever you've got. So there's lots of different materials you can use to create texture, and we're going to glue them onto a piece of brown card. So it's basically a thick cardboard. It's quite a rigid surface, and then once we've done that, we'll be able to print from it. So there's a few different steps. So first things first is we'll create a plate. So that will be on this grey board that you've got in your pack. Once we've created the plate, we'll wait for it to dry. Once it's dry, we can then cover it with PVA, which seals the plate. And then once that's dry, you can print with it. So it's a several stage process, but by the end of this, you should have something really fun to play with. So things that you'll need for this exercise is your grey board, your scissors from the pack. I know these aren't quite the same, but some scissors. Any spare cardboard. So I've got this stuff here, which is called mount board, but corrugated card or any old boxes that you might have lying around. Just grab some of that. I've also got with me, as I said, I've got some tissue, some silver foil. So you might want to go through your recycling and see if there's anything there that you can use. And then I'm also going to be using some scrim and some string, because I've got this image that I created with a monoprint. I thought it might be quite interesting to see how this translates into a collagraph. So I'm thinking that I might use some string to go around the edges to describe this line. I might use some cardboard to cut the shape of the flower to glue down in between. And then I might try and find if I've got some bubble wrap, because bubble wrap leaves a really fun print. So you've got one of these in your pack. You will also need one of your paintbrushes from the pack as well, because we'll use that to coat the cardboard. So this grey board that you've got here, we need to coat this completely in glue. And then once we've done that, we can start sticking. So I've got quite a thick brush here. I'm just going to use it to put glue all over this. And to give you an idea, here's some random plates that I found as examples. So here someone has used string. This isn't my plate. This is from a course that I did a while back where I was teaching. And they've used cardboard here to create layers and string. So here's some cardboard, here's your string. This is some hessian, so you could use some scrim. There's some netting here. And then this is some sort of foam fabric. And up here you can see this is bits of cotton, like quite a textured cotton that they've used to create the plate. And I was saying to you about how bubble wrap can look really good. And here's a print I did a while back. Here's the bubble wrap. It leaves a really lovely dotty texture. And this is part of some corrugated card. And up here's corrugated card as well. This is some vegetable netting, and this is silver foil, the really scrunched up pieces here. And down in the bottom section here, that's also silver foil. So you can get some really interesting textures. Oh, and this is some string that I knotted. So that was used to define the outside of the shape. Okay, so there's lots of ways that you can create texture in your piece. Basically, to do any printmaking, especially when you're at home, as long as you have a nice flat surface that you can work on, just protect it with a little bit of perhaps some newspaper, because you might get some glue over the surface, and then you can either stand or sit, whichever one you're most comfortable in, and just take your time and enjoy everything with it. It's nice to carve out some time for ourselves, isn't it, to be creative. So there's one part of my flower. This isn't going to be exactly the same as the one that I created on my monoprint, but it's just give me a rough guide of what to do and how to do it, about experimenting and seeing what happens. And then if you test loads of different ideas out in different ways, you'll find something that you really enjoy, but try not to be too precious with it straight off. It's just about exploring it. So don't be afraid of using too much glue, because you really can't. I've got lots of different textures on here. And what I'm going to do now is to leave you to get on with your own. Just experiment. Anything that adds texture, you can add to this. And once you get to a point that you feel you're happy, so here we go. If we compare my plate with my inspiration, you can see it has a rough resemblance, hasn't it? Anyway, once you get to a point where you feel that you're happy with what you've produced so far, let it dry completely. So this is an example here of a Collagraph plate. So here's the plate on this side, and this side is the print that someone's produced. Just to bear in mind that you will get a mirror image. So if you're using writing, it's really important that you think about that. So you can use some tracing paper, which you have in your pack, and write whatever you want to on there, and then turn it over and trace it backwards onto your plate. And then that means when you print, it should be the right way around. My Collagraph plate is now completely dry, including this tiny little dot in the middle of glue that you can see. So the next step is to cover the whole of this plate with PVA. So I've got this flat-headed brush, and I'm just going to take my PVA glue. In fact, I might squeeze some out of here. And the idea is that you will seal. So you can see, squeeze the glue on there. So you're going to seal all these materials. So I'm going to pay particular attention to this scrim over here, and also my cardboard that I've got in the middle, and the string. So it's going to seal these surfaces so that they accept the ink but don't absorb them. And then that means that when you come to print, it should have a better result. But you know, if you don't do this, it will still print. It may not last as long. It might come apart a little bit as you ink it up. All my bubble wrap in this corner is all lifted away, so I'm going to stick that back down. If you find that this happens with you, just you know, use a bit more PVA. You can't use too much, and it will ensure that your work prints as best as you can hope. Equally, when you ink it up, if bits do lift off, it doesn't matter. It's just part of the effect, and it's all a learning process, isn't it? So as long as we're having fun, it's all good. But there's glue all over the surface now, and I'm going to pop it on the radiator to dry. And then we can have a go and play with this once it's dry. And for me, that will be tomorrow now. So what we will need is your plate, which you've made already and is completely dry. It's really important that it's completely dry. You've also coated the surface with the PVA glue and let that dry as well. You'll need some scrim, which is this stuff here. That's in your pack. You'll need your ink and your ink tray, some brushes to put the ink on the surface, maybe a toothbrush if you've got an old toothbrush lying around that you can use to scrub like push the paint and push the ink into all of the nooks and crannies. So I'm going to put 2 pieces of my bread and butter paper into the water. So my plan is to print twice from this Collagraph plate today, just to sort of see what happens. I'm going to put my bowl on the floor. Let's hope I don't kick it over. I've got my Collagraph plate here. So I'm going to pop some of the ink into the ink tray. And actually I've thought about it a little bit. And whilst I could use these brushes, and I will do, I'm also going to use a little bit of this. This is just some card. It's got a bit of flex to it. You can also use old store cards or any sort of old bank card if you've got them lying around, or a membership card to something, whatever it is, as long as it's something that has a bit of flex to it. So I'm using this to scrape the ink over that nice smooth surface I've got in the middle. Now I reckon I'm gonna start using my paintbrush so that it goes into all of these gaps. So if you do have paints at home, you can always do this with something. If you've got an acrylic paint lying around in lots of lovely colours, you might want to try experimenting by using your acrylic paint and painting on here as well. It doesn't just have to be the block ink. Here we go. So it's all covered, and what I will do, just pop this over to the side for now. I'm going to actually rest it across the corners of my ink tray to just keep it off of the table. And I'm going to carefully get some paper out of my washing up bowl. Make sure your fingers aren't too dirty. So my fingers are a little bit grubby. So I'm using my other hand to get the paper out. I'm going to use this old tea towel, which is nice and clean, to just blot the paper. So you want the paper to be a little bit damp, but not soaking wet. And this will help it pick up the ink and pick up some of the texture. So you put your paper down first this time and carefully place it. Now you're going to apply some pressure. So here we go. Here's the results of the first one. So you can see there's a really nice texture over here from the bubble wrap. And here, there's some really lovely bits that have been picked up by that plastic that I used from the vegetables. There's a bit of texture from the silver foil. I like these lines on my flower. Bit disappointed that this hasn't come out as much as I'd hoped, but I think because I'm doing it upside down, so the paper is underneath the plate, I think the string is holding the paper off the surface a little bit. So it means when I'm pushing down on the back of the card, it's just not making any contact. So they're all very different, aren't they? Let me put them all the same way around so it's really clear what's happened. So there we go. So that's number 2. Let's This is print number 1. And this one, with all that juicy texture and detail, is print number 3.